Grounds, the monthly game club where we play games together and brew good conversation. I'm your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
And we are here ready to kind of, I don't know, this is an interesting episode because we are in between games right now.
In the liminal space, if you will.
Yeah.
The nether regions. Nope. No, we're not there.
I don't want to be in the nether region.
We're just, we're in the in-between space.
Yes, that's much better.
Yep.
I feel like we just finished Cocoon, so I feel like there's a world within world thing we could do here.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
We are pupating is where we are.
I don't know if I like that either.
But that one's good. That's a real one. I like it. We're pupating.
Leaning into
We're going to emerge as a butterfly. Mm-hmm. We're going to be so beautiful.
Wow. I cannot wait to emerge. We're going to talk about what we need to do. But for folks who are brand new to the podcast, welcome. Geeks and Grounds, again, is a monthly game club, but we also are a newsletter and a Discord community. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter or joined the Discord, go to geeksandgrounds.com. That is where you can go to sign up for everything. All the links are there. Everything's handy. And I would highly suggest you do so. And if you're a returning member of the club, welcome back. As always, we really appreciate everyone's participation. And if you have left a review on Spotify or Apple or left comments on YouTube, we really appreciate it. And if you haven't, we really would love it if you would.
Please do.
Yeah, so that's it for the housekeeping. I guess
if someone's been pupating as they've been listening along, they can emerge as a butterfly by leaving us a comment in the review section.
You heard it here. If you want to finish your pupation.
Yeah. I don't know what the emergence process is called.
This isn't... I feel like if someone is brand new, they may be listening to this and just like, what is this? I thought this was a video game
It's
thing.
Because we're recording at night. It's like Geeks and Ground nights.
After dark.
Dark.
Yeah, things get a little bit unhinged.
We've got after dark energy right now.
So let's take that energy over to the Pastry Case. This is where we have a grab bag of topics, news from the industry, games that are launching, things that are just on our minds and what we're playing, reading, consuming outside of the monthly selection. The big news that I want to start with, it's a little belated, I think, maybe by the time you're listening to this, because we only record once a week, and I feel like we hit the tail end of the week with our recordings, and so it's kind of like there's a delay. But the good news is the SAG-AFTRA strike is done.
Tentatively done. Pending a vote.
Yes. I think they're at like an 86%. Yeah, I think didn't they vote already?
I don't know. I saw a TikTok today that made me very concerned about the vote. I don't know. It could have been an old TikTok.
I think what I saw was it was 86% approval from the members to move forward with this.
So it's like the members finished pupating. And
oh God.
No. Emerging as butterflies in the skies. And you can fly twice as high as...
What was that guy, Lenny Kravitz?
Nope, that was LeVar Burton of Reading Rainbow.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yep. Nope. I was thinking You're My Butterfly, Sugar Baby.
Yeah,
that was that was Lenny Kravitz.
No, that was like Fatboy Slim or something like that. Lenny Kravitz was the I want to get away, I want to fly away
you're
guy.
Right. Oh my gosh, what is happening?
Geeks and Grounds Nights.
No, Nights doesn't even make sense. After Dark is like a way better.
After Dark.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, SAG-AFTRA strike tentatively done. It's looking good. I've seen more and more people like just more comfortably talking about things that are coming out. Celebrities are starting to post about their projects. So at least at this point in time, it looks good, and fingers crossed it finalizes.
It's been a bit of a balm on my soul as I am simultaneously, watching a genocide happen across the world. So, in a few different places right now. So yeah, I'll claw this win and just get a little bit of warm fuzzies while we get back to the work of making the world a better place, hopefully. Yeah,
well, I think one thing that's definitely been a bright spot is that at the very least, labor unions in the U.S. Have had a really good summer and productive summer in terms of advocating for their workers and having win after win after win in terms of labor issues and labor rights. So that is a thing that we can look to that's positive, while also now, like you said, turning our actions and attention to what is happening in a few countries right now.
Yeah. Holy smokes, y'all. I'm ready for us to go to begin pupating in some of these countries.
And with the next article here, Night in the Woods follow-up Revenant Hill has been canceled. This is from The Verge, written by Andrew Webster. For folks who didn't know about Revenant Hill, this was meant to be the follow-up title from the studio that made Night in the Woods. The Glory Society, which was the development team, they have had some health concerns and health issues from some of their members that forced them to step away from the project. And as a result, because of these health issues and just how hard it is to make games in general, especially in this climate, they decided the best thing for the team, the best thing for the project was to stop production. And Finji, which is the publisher, they were in full support of this, which was really nice to see.
That's awesome.
And it's a hard decision, and I feel for the team, but I also commemorate them for like making that decision and putting the health of the team first. And I think that's what they said in their note. If I can take a look here. Let's see. I thought I had linked the Twitter as well, but here we go. So in their website, they had a note from the team. What was really cool, I didn't know this, but they were a co-op.
Oh,
they were
wow,
cooperative.
that's awesome.
And so they said, we make decisions as a group. For us, this was the clear path to take for the well-being of the team, which is frankly more important than games. In the future, after the dust has settled, perhaps we'll talk about what we've made and learn together. And in the meantime, we want to thank everyone who worked with us, supported us, and believed in us. And so, I think it's a really sad situation, but I'm just happy that they took that route instead of forcing something and depleting the health of the team even more.
Yeah, it's games. Let's. We need people to be healthy. We're a fan of that. So really cool that number one, I did not know they were co-op, and two, that the group must have identified like at least to some degree in unison to make this decision, which is like a really exciting thing. So very cool. Yeah. I mean, sad, but cool that they have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, but once again, it's like kind of going off of the SAG-AFTRA and sort of the labor discussion that we've been having. It's this idea of people over the work that they produce, the products that they create. And so, I wish all the best to the team and just look forward to hearing about how they're healthy and feeling rejuvenated and rested, hopefully, in the future.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And the last bit of news from the industry, this is a pretty exciting time. November, December, everyone's usually talking about their games of the year, their favorites, what they say you have to play from 2023. And the Game Awards just put out their nominees just today as we were getting ready to record this. And so I thought it would be really cool just to take a look at some of the categories. There are a ton. If you're interested, you can go to the website, look for yourself at some of the favorite things you're interested in. But a couple of the categories in particular I thought would be more pertinent to us as a community.
Yeah.
And so I thought we could take a look. For folks who aren't familiar, the Game Awards is kind of like, it's the winter showcase for particularly AAA games. And it's kind of like the fancy show of the game industry. I think Jeff Keighley, who is the primary host, is trying to build it up like the Oscars, the gold, it's like those fancy shows. It definitely is a big title AAA kind of focus, but he does squeeze in occasionally room for indies, and he has like two categories that indies usually are more predominant in. This showcase is not without its critiques. I think like last year, for example, I think he didn't have, or he had only one woman on stage the whole time, or it was definitely in the single digits.
Yikes.
And so there are a lot of just questions and feedback and critiques and concerns about just representation within this showcase, not only within the games, but the people who make them. But because this is one of the biggest showcases, I think it would be remiss if we didn't at least take a look at what was being nominated and what we perhaps are excited to see. So would you like to share what is let's start with Games for Impact, because I think there are a few familiar titles on there.
Games for Impact. If you've been playing along with us, you'll hear several titles, or a couple titles at least, that we have gotten to be a part of and play along with. So the first one listed is Space for the Unbound, then Chance of Sinar, Goodbye Volcano High, Chia, Terra Nil, and Venba. And of course, we played Space for the Unbound and Venba together in the Geeks Grounds community. And two games that I think we repeatedly came back to as a very likely selection for Game of the Year.
Yeah, and honestly, all of these titles are great. I'll disclose I'm affiliated with Chia. That was one of the games that at my day job I got to work on.
That.
You didn't? Oh,
No.
yeah. So
Cool.
Chia was a title that I got to work on, and honestly, all of these titles I have at least tried a little bit of and have loved every single one. I haven't gotten to finish all of them, but Terra Nil is absolutely beautiful. Goodbye Volcano High. Huge shout out to Co-op, which is another co-op studio, which is great. And Chance of Sinar is just like Tower of Babel, let's figuring out how to translate and sort of decipher language within this game.
I've seen the ads for this.
Yes, and a lot of folks in our community were talking about it in Discord.
Okay.
I've started it, but I haven't finished it. But I know a few people were talking about just the puzzles within that game being, for the most part, really, really interesting. So. Oh,
that's really great. And man, Space for the Unbound, but I guess both that and Venba, it's cool seeing games that we have this kind of personal connection to. You've been in this position before. This is my first time.
Yeah.
And it's just wow, this is a game that I really believed in and really loved, and got to have some great conversations with you all and with you, Jenny, about. And it's this is the most connection I have had to a Game of the Year list ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really exciting.
Yeah, and then there's one other category I wanted to highlight. Well, I guess two. The first is Best Independent Game, if you wanted to do the honors.
Yes, Best Independent Game. We have Cocoon,
hey,
Dave the Diver, Dredge, Sea of Stars, and Viewfinder. And this is, the most titles I have ever played on a Game of the Year list. Really cool that Cocoon made it on this list, considering how kind of recent the energy is behind it.
I think it's a very, very good title. I'm not totally surprised it made it, but I am this for me was a very tough category for Best Independent Game. I think there are so many titles that could have made it, and so it is really impressive to me that Cocoon did. I was honestly, I'm not surprised, but I'm it was just I don't know what would have taken its place because they're all so good.
Yeah, I don't either. There have been some real hits this year. I feel like all the games that were this is my interpretation, but it feels like a lot of the games that were kind of backlogged during COVID got released this year.
Yeah.
And it's I am really struggling to keep on top of my game list. Almost every game that was nominated in the main category for Game of the Year, I own, and I think I've only played 2 or 3 of them just because they're all huge games that take a lot of time. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what the next couple of years are going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, and we kind of talked about it last week, right? Where it's we're going to probably see a little bit of a lull. We're going to see maybe, people, I imagine next year or the year after, we're going to probably see a few articles oh, what's going on with the games? Is this, the end of games? And I think, no, it's going to be, there's ebbs and flows and there's highs and lows.
There's pupations and metamorphoses.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so really cool to see. Cocoon and Dredge we played as a part of the club. Dave the Diver I played so much of. Nearly 100% of the game. I'm going to try probably over the holiday break to get those final achievements. Sea of Stars and Viewfinder, outstanding titles. I don't know which one I would want to win, to be honest. I'm so torn. I think for me, it's probably between Dredge and Sea of Stars, if looking at this list. All of the games are outstanding. I think Dredge and Sea of Stars, for me, had some of the most impact and I think some of the most interesting conversation. I could see Dave the Diver taking it, though, because that one really blew up, and I think it became something much greater in the zeitgeist than a lot of these titles did. But I would be happy with any of these titles, honestly.
Yeah, totally fair. And I know that you've at least talked with me quite a bit about Sea of Stars and how much you loved this game.
Yes.
So I don't know if anyone else in the community has been getting into that one. Love to hear your thoughts on it as well. It seems, I've only watched the trailers for it. It looks really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it wasn't as long as it is, we would have certainly played it for the club by now. Once I figure out the way we can formulate the club to fit in these longer games, we'll play it for sure. But yeah, if you haven't had the chance, it's on all the platforms. Just go play it. Honestly, play all of these games. So yeah, and then best debut indie game, I think we have a lot of repeats here. Mostly just exciting to see, again, 3 of the titles that we've played through the club are here. So.
Yeah, so we have Cocoon, Dredge, Pizza Tower, Venba, and Viewfinder. So yeah, again, three titles. And man, how great that Venba's getting this recognition. Like, it's such a fantastic game. And I think we talked about ad nauseum, I'm sure, for the community, how much we loved this game. And so it's exciting to see something that's that, like, thoughtful and thought-provoking make one of these lists.
And honestly, for me, like, the team was so lovely, like getting to talk with the team and just getting to see like how impactful this was to all of the folks who like I've gotten to chat with just on the side, like people who never saw themselves in a game, finally seeing themselves. It's just, I'm so happy for this team and how they've gotten multiple nominations on their first game together.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Outstanding. I know for Games for Impact, I don't even know who I want to win because I'm just like between Venba, Chia, Terra, it's just too many good games. And I don't want to pick. We'll have to have our own. We're going to have to do some sort of G&G end of the year, like our own categories. But we should do categories that are like not these. We should come up with like creative, like superlatives like that.
Most likely to pupate.
Oh my God.
Really feeling this energy. Hope you all are enjoying Geeks and Grounds After Dark.
Let's see. Anything else you wanted to say on the Game Awards?
Just that, my game BG3 is on the list of like top titles, and I am I finally made it to Act 3. I've played 120 hours, and I like everyone I talked to is like, you spent 120 hours and you're just getting into Act 3. It's like, I am enjoying every morsel and ounce and like picadillo of this game. And so, yes, I'm very much enjoying it, taking my time.
That's awesome. Okay, so then actually, let's go back really fast. Game of the Year. I know you haven't played all of them, but we have Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is a stacked list. Like, this is...
Yes.
Any two of these any other year, any one of these any other year would be the Game of the Year.
Can you explain to me how Resident Evil 4 is on this list? Like, what happened that Resident Evil 4 is on this list now?
I mean, it's the remake.
But, like, is it, like, a substantially different than the old?
I have not played it, so I do not know. I wouldn't be able to speak to that. But
I've played, like, 3 remakes of Resident Evil 4 in my life, and so it's, like, shocking to me that another remake has made a Game of the Year list. But I haven't played it, so I don't know.
Well, and I think part of this, too, is, like, we're looking at Game of the Year, right? And these are, like, when we had our discussion about what is indie, what is AAA, like these are, in terms of Game of the Year, looking at what are some of the biggest IPs, probably some of the most highly profitable games. So I think I don't do any of the curation for this, and I don't know what the curation is like, but I imagine like where with indie, it's probably a bit more like, oh, what is some of the story? What are some of those more emotional impacts? What are the ways that like they're doing representation differently? Game of the Year, I feel like, has maybe slightly different criteria that they look at
for sure,
to really narrow down their top list. Which is why you get these like heavyweight IPs that everyone sees year after year after year in different forms.
Totally. I mean, I will say, I started playing Super Mario Brothers Wonder a couple weeks ago, and my wife and I play it together. Like, it's been a really fun little, like, it's very cute.
Weird game.
It's weird, but it's accessible in a way that I feel like a lot of platformers are not. Like, like anybody could play this game and have fun. So I don't know. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I do appreciate that as well, especially when you look at all these other games where, like, Baldur's Gate 3, you got to be dedicated to play Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like Spider-Man 2 is probably also quite accessible, but I think if you are not someone who considers yourself a gamer, like, Spider-Man 2 probably wouldn't be the one you pick up.
Get in,
yeah, Alan Wake 2, Resident Evil 4, those are all titles that, like, as a newcomer to games, I probably would never start there. Sure. I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then Tears of the Kingdom is a great game, but also it's like there's so much in it that, again, I imagine difficult to start with if it's one of your first games.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. I didn't even realize that, how many of these are like they are all established IPs. No, that's really interesting. And Alan Wake is the one that's like a complete unknown for me. I know that like there's a lot of conversation about it, but like I know nothing about this game. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's like a game where like a person's asleep. Your goal is to wake them up. Like, what's going on there? Yeah. And that is not what it is about.
Yeah, I have totally avoided, beyond all odds, honestly, everything about Alan Wake 2 other than like just sort of general reactions of people liking it. But I have no idea what the Alan Wake series is really. So,
does anybody actually play this game? If you've played this game, can you just be like, yeah, we played this game, Joel?
Yeah, no, so many people have. Like, a bunch of my friends are super big fans of Alan Wake. I vaguely know about the story of the first one, but I have no idea what's going on with the second. And eventually I will play it, probably because everyone keeps hyping it up. But
got it. See, my bar is like, if Jenny Wyndham hasn't played it, it's not even a real game. It doesn't actually exist. It's probably just vaporware.
Yeah, probably. That's, I'm not going to complain about that. I feel like everyone should just follow that rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and just to wrap us up in the pastry case, notable game launches for this week. Again, this is just to highlight not every single game that's coming out, but some that I think would be of particular interest to you all in this community. So the first is Spirit Tea, coming out already, November 13th. This is perfect for those of you who like slice of life things. It's like Spirited Away meets, Stardew Valley almost. You've got slice of life, managing a bathhouse for the yokai. Karma Zoo comes out on November 14th. Think multiplayer, co-op, online, super fun. Again, cooperative online play. Not something you often hear. Broken Roads comes out November 14th. That is a good game for folks who are fans of dystopic, post-apocalyptic worlds and RPGs. It looks like it kind of plays like a Disco Elysium, like very narrative heavy, very like RPG, like traditional RPG in that sense. American Arcadia, a lot of you played the demo during the Steam Next Fest. It's finally going to be out on November 15th. That's the one that looked very retro-futuristic and had the very cinematic feel, which was very cool, about someone trapped potentially in a reality TV show and trying to escape. Small Saga comes out November 16th. That is for any fan of RPGs and Redwall in particular. You are a mouse going after the yellow gods who took your tail. Yes. It's so good. I cannot wait for Small Saga. And the final launch for this week is Lottlnot, coming out on November 16th. This one is basically cleaning up the ocean and tending to little Lottlnots, which are creatures kind of like Tamagotchis.
Okay.
And I've had the joy of being able, the demo was out for a little bit of Steam Next Fest. I've been able to play it for a little bit. It's very cathartic because you're just cleaning goo off of coral. Ooh. So it satisfies that like cleaning urge that you have. Okay. People have you ever played Power Wash Simulator?
I've only watched people play it, but just watching it is satisfying for me.
It's kind of like a PS1 or PS2 graphic Power Wash Simulator energy.
Okay.
Very vibrant, very cute. So yeah, very excited for that. So that's coming out later this week.
What are the odds that we could get like a small saga God of War crossover and like Kratos
oh my goodness
teams up with the
mouse
hero of this game and they take down the gods of the universe?
That would
Eldritch
be
horror.
Amazing.
I'm gonna start writing the fan fiction. Y'all contribute.
There we go. So as always, we welcome any questions, comments on any of the things that we mentioned here today, or if you have any questions in general you'd like to ask, send me an email at jenny@geeksandgrounds.com and we will include it in the show. All right, are you ready for this month's brew?
I'm so ready to brew.
So the topic for this month's brew is different, again, just as a reminder, from normal episodes because we are setting up for next year. We're doing a little bit of, what's the word?
Like pupating?
No.
She set me up, though.
No.
We can all agree that was a trap.
I was just thinking like planning, just a much more basic word. I don't know.
Planning. That's what I said too.
So for folks who aren't familiar, last week we spent the week taking in nominations for games that you all would like to play next year. I will be picking 6 of the titles. The community gets to pick 6 of the titles, and so there's a nice back and forth between things that you are really excited about and want to play and discuss, but also a little bit of fun surprises because I really like to curate, and I already have a couple of titles that I'm like, we need to play for sure next year. Yes. They're really weird and really cool.
And I want to throw out, like, thank you all for submitting. Like, I know that we won't be able to choose all of them, but like there are games on here that it's like, as I've just been kind of scanning through, it's like, I would never have stumbled across this game if you all hadn't recommended it. So really appreciate y'all taking the time to hop in and give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. Again, for me too, I'm like, I've never heard of a couple of these titles, and even if we don't end up playing them, I will probably be purchasing them. Yeah, so exactly. Thank you for letting me spend more money.
The machine thanks you.
With these nominations, we did have quite a few. I was surprised, actually. And once everything's sort of released and the announcements and the results are tallied, I'd love to share a bit more data about what was nominated and how many, because there was so much crossover. I think the one thing I was surprised by is that a lot of people nominated very similar titles. And so I'm like, I don't know if we're all just... because we're all having conversations together, so we're thinking about the same titles, or if everyone is just really passionate about these same games and we're just that in sync as a community. But it was quite interesting. We ended up with 16 nominations total. 16 unique nominations, but many more people nominated these games. There were just a lot of duplicates, honestly.
Not a bad place to start.
So it wasn't a bad place to start. So actually it was quite nice because most of these games had at least 2 people mention them. Many of these games did. So I feel like regardless of what ends up getting picked, we're going to have folks excited about everything. Remember, this is also so you can prep ahead of time. My hope is to be able to share these titles with you and tentatively put like where we're going to play them so that you can save up money if you need to. You can allocate time if you're knowing like, I'm going to be traveling. Maybe this month is going to be busy. I'm going to start early, do what you need to do. That was one point of feedback I've gotten in terms of just being able to prepare and plan in advance for the months where you're like exceptionally busy, but you do want to participate. So thank you for everyone who provided that feedback too.
We love feedback.
We do. So for this episode, we are going to be just going through the 16 nominees, just shouting them out, saying the Steam description and kind of what things that stand out to us as we've looked at the Steam page. Remember, voting will be, I think I mentioned last week, it was like the 21st or 26th. I'm going to just extend it to the 28th because that's like the end of the month and that just makes more sense.
That's a good idea.
That just makes a little bit more sense. So voting is extended until November 28th. So if you're listening to this and it's not November 28th, 2023, you can still vote, and the link will be in the show notes wherever you are listening to this. So you can just copy and paste or click on it and go put your vote in.
Gives you a couple extra days to like pupate on it,
Yes. Yes. So we're not going to do these in any particular order. I just did a random order in the ranked voting. nerdy moment. But what happens is I put this in rankedvote.com or it was a ranked vote website. And you can click a button that says it randomizes the order for every single person of the options.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm not, by putting in certain games in certain orders, not biasing potentially the results of people voting. I thought that was just so cool. So I just took the order from one of the sort of random orders when I refreshed the page. So
for a person who works in student assessment, I truly appreciate question randomizers.
Yes. I knew you'd have a moment of appreciation there, so I had to shout that out.
True Zen.
So let's begin. We're just going to go through these titles. Again, we have 16. Joel, did you want to start with American Arcadia?
American Arcadia, a mirror to the moon.
What song is that?
It's Stadium Arcadium by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Not
a great
familiar.
band, but I can't. Every time I see it, I have to. I just thought I'd share. Okay, yeah. American Arcadia. American Arcadia is a cinematic puzzle game that combines a 2.5D platformer and first-person game to tell the tale of a thrilling escape. Experience the extraordinary story of Trevor, an average man escaping from the world's most popular reality TV show.
Now, this one, again, we've mentioned it a couple of times already because this is a definite fan favorite of the community here. Mm-hmm. Steam Next Fest demo was, I think, one of the most polished in the bunch. And I played,
really?
I played probably 50, just under 50 Steam Next Fest demos this last session. And I think it was maybe it was definitely in the top 5, if not top 3 demos for me. In terms of pacing, the polish and colors. I think it's just a beautiful game that shows that you don't have to be grim to be dystopic. And I think that tone is really interesting. And the Truman Show vibes are just really good too.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a classic. It's a classic tale as old as the 90s. We love to see it. This is like a really exciting premise. The game looks very cool from the images that we've seen. Mm-hmm. I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah. Did you get to... Because I know you played a few of the demos. Did you get a chance to try this one?
No, I totally missed this one. So I think by the time I learned about it, the fest was over, unfortunately.
Oh, dang. Well, for anyone who'd like to maybe try the demo...
Is it still available?
It's still available.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just putting it up until the game launches. Sometimes developers will remove it once the game launches because they want to incentivize you purchasing it. Sure. But if you're listening to this and it's... I would say check because they've had it up since the Steam Next Fest. So, that's pretty cool. American Arcadia. The next title that we have on the list is One Shot.
One Shot. One Shot is a surreal top-down puzzle adventure game with unique gameplay capabilities. You are to guide a child through a mysterious world on a mission to restore its long-dead son. The world knows you exist. Ooh, that is ominous. The world knows you exist? I need to ruminate on that one for a bit.
Yeah. It almost has the opposite feel of like You Are the Traffic in a way. That's a throwback, y'all. That is for the folks who have been here since episode 1, I feel like.
Holy smokes. Yes. Knows you are here. Yeah.
So this one has a very special place in my heart. The first time I played One Shot was last year, and it actually was, shout out to Thespiomancer and Ghostly, because I was actually testing out the Geeks and Grounds format with them, and I was like, could we play One Shot together and just talk about it? And I just want to see what it's like to play a game at the same time as other people, and then maybe have like a quick call where we hang out and chat. And we did that just super casually last December, actually. So it's been almost exactly 1 year. And this game is outstanding. I will say that. I am kind of biased. I would love to play it again. But the premise is, and I think this will be interesting for anyone who has played it, is the idea is you only have one shot to play this game. And so as someone going in and playing it for a second time, I'm really curious to see how it feels. But as someone maybe who's never played it before, know that this game is, the intent of this game is to have this one shot to go through it.
I will not miss my chance to blow.
Yes. opportunities come once in a lifetime.
I do want to throw out. So is there's like a cat girl that we're seeing in the imagery here?
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't think they ever say whether it's, I don't know if they say it's a girl or a guy or a they or anything. I don't remember if they do. But yeah, you have like this cat kid Yeah, this cat kid. And like the description says, the world knows that you're there. There is a fourth wall sort of situation happening. There is a content warning on the Steam page, so I'll shout it out just in case this may impact your vote or if you want to play it. It's not a horror game in the traditional sense, but parts of the game may induce some paranoia, so please proceed with caution. And I think it's because part of that fourth wall breaking and some of the dialogue that happens can feel very like personal in some really interesting ways, and it's I think it's an outstanding nomination. And again, this was one that was also nominated multiple times. So
color me intrigued.
Yeah.
I will say the character design reminds me a lot of the Katao cat people from Outlaw Star. It's like an anime in the 90s. I don't know if you remember this.
That's a throwback, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like very strong sense memory right now of that. So apologies if that's a way dated reference.
Oh my gosh. I have not thought of Outlaw Star in maybe since the 90s. So thank you for bringing me way, way back.
Happy to do it.
So that was one shot. The third nomination we have is The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow.
The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow. The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow is a folk horror narrative-driven adventure. Explore the isolated moors of rural Victorian England as you uncover the mysteries of Hobbs Barrow. The answers lie in the soil.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow, this looks so like, this is like Wuthering Heights vibes to the max.
Yeah, this is a very narrative game. It's basically storyline, folklore, mystery, ominous mystery. I started it and I did not finish it. And so I'm really interested to see how it ends if we do end up picking this. This has always been one that I've wanted to pick up again. So it's exciting to see that it was nominated. This is an award-winning game, by the way. It was nominated for the BAFTAs. It's got a couple of like narrative awards. So this is one that I feel like kind of slipped under the radar last year, because there were so many big titles, like God of War came out last year, a bunch of others. Yeah. So I think this one is one that kind of was a bit more of a hidden gem, a bit more of a diamond in the rough kind of situation. Really interesting. I didn't realize I played the developers one of their first games way back when I started working in the industry, called Football Game. And so that game was set in like a high school, if I'm remembering correctly, like a high school football game, and you're just like walking through and there's sort of this dark mystery that you're solving there. Really interesting to see them take this time period and this tone, and it looks way more polished than football games, so it's cool to see how much they've grown so far.
I mean, if you're wondering if this game is for you, the GIF, yes, I say GIF, that is on the screen right now is a woman in Victorian era garb setting her bag down and slapping a man in the face who's wearing like a news cap. Yep. So if that's your energy, this might be the game for you. Yeah.
One of the lines on their Steam page says, as one of the features, is "Fiends in the furrows, the smell of damp soil, and a cat or two." And if that doesn't sell you on the game, then I don't know what will. I think it sets the mood perfectly. Very atmospheric. I think this will be interesting too, because we've talked already about folk horror from Bramble's perspective in this Nordic folk tale. This game seems to be focusing on folk horror from a different European standpoint, and so I'm really interested to see what kind of folk horror they get into.
We should just make a folk horror podcast, and that's the only thing we play is like folk horror around the world. Yeah. Very cool. Looks like a lot of fun.
Yes. Now this one, again, another multiple nominee one.
Oh, it's Celeste!
Yes.
Celeste, help Madeline survive her inner demons on her journey to the top of Celeste Mountain in this super tight, platformer from the creators of Towerfall. Brave hundreds of handcrafted challenges, uncover devious secrets, and piece together the mystery of the mountain.
Have you played Celeste?
I believe this was one of the first games you had me play as like in getting me into the indie world.
Yeah.
And as you all know, I'm not one to skip a handout when offered. And once I got to a certain point in this game, I turned on like God mode and really thoroughly enjoyed my time. So
yeah.
If platformers are kind of intimidating for you, fear not. The devs have made this game so that really, literally, if you change your settings, anybody can play it and have a really good time.
Right, yeah. And for those who maybe aren't familiar with Celeste, it is a precision platformer. And so as you go through each level, you're going to have to figure out essentially the puzzle of how to best get from point A to point B. And it gets increasingly more difficult. But as Joel mentioned, I think the saving grace for this game is the way you can customize it to your abilities.
Yep.
And I think it fits... that the ability to do that fits a lot of the messaging of the game as a whole too, about like learning about yourself, uncovering like what you're able to handle in terms of challenge, what are you able to like face and what are you trying to confront, how far can you push. And I think the way that they do accessibility with the themes of the game are really interesting and could offer some great discussion for the community. So I'm super happy to see this was nominated.
Yeah. Also, man, one of the most gorgeous ending sequences, like the whole last like 2 hours of the game, is just like jaw-dropping beautiful.
Yeah. So a little bit of a taste and a tease if you want to be able to see that and talk about it with the community.
Excellent. And then I'll read the next one, and maybe you can take the next 5.
Sure.
So the next game is Grease. That's how I say it. I don't know. Gris, for if you're trying to spell it at home. Grease is a hopeful young girl lost in her own world, dealing with a painful experience in her life. Her journey through sorrow is manifested in her dress, which grants new abilities to better navigate her fated reality. I love this game. I have a whole tattoo sleeve dedicated to this game. It's one of my favorites of all time. I don't know that I've ever played a more beautiful, like, if you like watercolor-based design, I don't know that I ever played a more beautiful experience. So truly excited to see this one on the list.
Yeah, I was also not surprised to see this one on the list because we've talked about this game quite a bit, both on this podcast as well as within the community and in our discussions. I would never be sad to play this game again. I think it's really beautiful. I've not had the chance to really talk about it with other people as I've played, so I think that would be really exciting.
Super fun. Yeah.
I think this one is just for heads up for folks. It deals with grief in a really abstract way, but I think in a really, I don't know, it just feels really tangible even though it's quite abstract. So I think this is one where maybe, I don't think there's content warnings necessarily, but you may cry a lot. So if you're like, I don't want games that make me cry, this is probably not the one for you. But if you love to cry, and I love to cry when I play games, I feel like it's quite cathartic. I really loved it. It was very emotional for me to play this game.
I think in the vein of games that don't have any dialogue and things, which is something we've talked about the last couple of months, this one definitely checks that box. I think there are 5 moments where you can find narrative dialogue, if you will, but they are not required. You don't have to find them. They're kind of like bonus content. So I think one of the things that would be very intriguing for those of you who have not yet played this game is to kind of dig back into that concept of like, how does this game communicate its motifs and stories without using a lot of words? Yeah,
I think that would be great. Just through lines between all of the games that we play, right? Yes. All right. Do you want me to get the
By
next
all
few?
means, yes.
Ooh, this is good because this is a favorite of mine. Slay the princess. You're here to slay the princess? Don't believe her lies. Short, simple, sweet. That is the Steam description. I think if you've listened to the podcast, you are familiar with Slay the Princess, but just in case you're not, maybe, again, this is your first time here, Slay the Princess is a choice-based visual novel where your decisions matter, impact the flow of the game, the narrative of the game, and it very much leans into psychological horror meets Lovecraftian / eldritchy almost horror, with the question of what do you do when you're given this task of slaying the princess? How much do you question it? How much do you just do as you're asked and told? And what happens as a result of your actions? And I think this would be really fun to play with folks. We've also had a conversation with the developers, and it'd be great to have them back to really dig into this game even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, even just the way you read that, the little blurb you heard it say the princess totally realized, like, I can hear the narrator's voice saying that.
So good.
The voice acting in this is so good. Like,
yeah.
We just love this game, and if we got the opportunity to play the whole thing for the podcast, it would be incredible. So, I mean, I'm not trying to sway you.
I mean, the thing is, I think if we're trying to sway people, we're not doing the best job, because literally with every game, we're like, this is the best game.
This game is so good.
We're so excited about playing this game. So yeah, we're doing a bad job of swaying people, I think, in a good way. Like, we're saying good things about all these games, because all of these games, again, y'all nominated some really good games.
Some bangers.
I'm really happy because I'm not going to be voting in this. This is the community vote. You all decide. I'm really happy that I've absolved myself of making any decisions in here.
It's got to feel good.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Slay the Princess. That one does also come with some content warnings. The developers have done a really good job. On their website, there's pretty extensive content warnings, but it is a horror game, so just understand there are images that show like self-harm. There's sort of like jarring body horror imagery, so things like that. So definitely look it up if you are contemplating voting for it, but maybe are concerned about some of that. All right, the next title is Flat Eye. This is one I hadn't heard of before, so I'm pretty excited about it. Flat Eye is a resource management sim with an emphasis on story and narrative choices. Oversee the world's leading technological hub while you explore stories linked to discoverable technology and interact with your most loyal customers. Flat Eye, we're watching. Super interesting. I love a resource management sim, and I think what's really interesting about this one is that it leans into perhaps some of the, I would say, qualms I have with maybe capitalism and resource management and control. Again, I have not played this one. This is one of the community nominees that I've never experienced. So I was super intrigued when looking at the Steam page. Curious if you had any thoughts on it or anything after hearing that Steam description.
So I've, to my knowledge, never played a resource management game. Like, obviously, resource management is a part of some games, and so like I've experienced it, but not a game that is explicitly focused on that as a prime like mechanic and experience within.
Right.
I'm super excited for the opportunity here.
Yeah.
This, again, we're just kind of like watching some like GIFs and things that are scrolling through while we're talking, and it's giving me like Antarctica vibes, like you're on like that kind of like base in a snow covered area,
right.
Which could be totally wrong, but it just looks very cool. And anytime you have like a Big Brother storyline going on, you've kind of instantly pulled me in.
Right. Yeah. This entity of Flat Eye, watching you. And in the Steam page, it even says like a word of caution, don't disappoint them. It's like, okay, so you have this sort of, this Big Brother entity looking over your shoulder as you're managing this place. And what I find, again, that not only is this going to probably, I would assume, delve into sort of capitalism and this like overseeing corporate structure and power, but the modules and the technology that you are, I think, creating or selling include like organ vending machine, artificial womb, cloning booth. So it's going to get into some of these really heavier impacts of technology that we see potentially in the future. Yeah. Really interesting.
Lots to explore here. Very exciting. Seems like a rich opportunity.
Yes, that was Flat Eye. All right, number 8.
OMG.
This one's a very, very cute one. This one's called Woven, and I really appreciated this one, first of all, because it's, I think, one of the older titles. We had a couple of titles that were like pre-2020, and I like this because it offers, a chance for us to look back and see some of the games that maybe we missed a long time ago. This is explore a woolen world where stuffed animals once lived in peace. Search for hidden secrets and customize your character with different animal shapes to solve puzzles. An epic adventure with 2 very unlikely heroes and a story narrated in rhyme.
What? In rhyme?
Yeah, so definitely whimsical, fun, cute, much more, I think, of like the 90s platformers when I look at this. This is another one I have not played before, but it very much has a feel of like the games I played on my Nintendo 64.
That's 64 is exactly the vibe that I was picking up looking at this.
Yes.
Like what we're seeing in the kind of scrolling images here, like there's almost like a loom or something where we're seeing like a stuffed animal get kind of deconstructed and then reconstructed into a different animal. It looks so cute, and yeah, I would love to play a game like this.
Yeah, I think this is nice because we do, and this is again why nominations are so fun, because I know I tend especially to go for perhaps more emotional titles, more heavy narrative focused, and so it's nice to have this option of like here's something a bit more lighthearted, a bit more whimsical, and I feel like it probably still has a really hopeful and positive message that we could still talk about and enjoy.
Unless we find out that these soft creatures are actually like eating animals on their island and transforming their body parts into...
Yeah, this is the prequel to
Bugsnax.
All right. The Last Campfire. The Last Campfire is an adventure, a story of lost ember trapped in a puzzling place, searching for meaning and a way home. This one is so cute.
Oh my goodness.
It very much gives me, if anyone's played Journey,
yes,
it gives Journey vibes. The character looks kind of like a chibi version of the Journey protagonist. It's just sort of this character that's wearing this robe and hood, and you can only see their eyes, and the hood almost looks like it has 2 cute little ears.
Oh my goodness.
I think this is a much more traditional puzzle adventure. I have not played it, but I know many in our community have spoken quite highly about this game, and this is one of those multiple request ones as well, where folks have definitely not been shy about saying that this is a title worth looking at.
Wow, yeah, it looks incredibly cute. Y'all know that I love a puzzle, and I love feeling bad about myself after I can't solve a puzzle. But I mean, the cuteness in this just looks like it would absolutely carry me through. It also kind of reminds me of like Jawas from the Star Wars world. If y'all are into that, it kind of looks like the main character also looks a little bit like a cuter version of that. Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting is it looks like we're looking at the trailer right now for those who are just listening to the podcast, and it looks like the character is sort of going through this world and using the flame to help either enliven things and restore them, or
it looks like other versions are like stonified or petrified, and
yeah, so
maybe you're trying to bring them back or something.
Yeah, there's something about this flame that's powerful and perhaps unusual compared to what we would think of as a fire.
It might be the last campfire.
It might be the last campfire. All right. The next title is Hyper Light Drifter. Explore a beautiful, vast, and ruined world riddled with dangers and lost technologies. Have you played Hyper Light Drifter?
No, but I have almost bought this game probably a dozen times. It looks so cool.
Yeah. This is another one of the older titles, which, again, I appreciate because there are so many games that, are pre-2020 that I have not played. This one came out in 2016, and I have not played it yet, but I know this is one of those games that everyone, when they talk about indie games, Hyper Light Drifter comes up in some form at some point in the conversation every time.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's giving kind of like NES Zelda vibes, but with like more modernized design, obviously. Wow, like the kind of beautiful neons and background colors. The movements of the characters look so smooth. There's a reason that I've almost purchased this so often. I didn't know it was such a staple in the community. That's really cool.
Yeah, this is one of those indie games where I think you see a lot of people talking about it when they talk about like classic indie games, must play indie games. And it's just one of those that I honestly have always been a little intimidated by. I look at it and I think, okay, I probably have to be a little bit proficient to play this.
It looks hard.
But I think I would really love to give it a try because I never have, and perhaps I am getting intimidated for no reason. So I think this is a really cool nomination. And I believe there's a sequel, Hyper Light. There's like a sequel coming up as well.
That sounds right. I do remember seeing something about that. Okay.
So that's pretty exciting.
Very cool.
The next one is another Steam Next Fest demo that we recently talked about and played. It's called I Did Not Buy This Ticket. This is a shorter title, and the description is Weep for the Dead. In this short psychological horror story, play as a professional mourner traveling between funerals. Ride a nightmarish bus whose destination depends on how you choose to face your traumas. So just a little bit of light gameplay here.
This game looks freaky as hell. My God. The imagery, like you're kind of like these cutout people that like you have the kind of dialogue traveling along the bottom. But the people, like every single person that we've seen has been like weird in some way. Like we're looking at a person like a bus driver who doesn't really have like a clear face. It's kind of smudgy. And we just watched fingers come out of the middle of the face and like spread it open and an eye look out. So yeah, spooky or creepy might be the word here.
I think this one's really striking. It almost feels mixed media in a way when you look at the screenshots, like the way that things are layered and the textures of it's 2D art, but it feels very like 3D in the way that it's like mixed media, like you would a scrapbook or like a painting that uses multiple materials.
If y'all remember bubble tape commercials back in the day, and there was like a hand and people had like pasted paper eyes on the hand to eat the bubble tape.
No.
Okay, well that's the vibe of this. Your mixed media thing is medium thing is exactly correct.
Wow, I will have to Google bubble tape commercial. Yeah, this one, again, we have quite a few like horror games because this is definitely not the last one between I Did Not Buy This Ticket, Slay the Princess, a few that are coming up. Were there any other horror games? No, we got some dystopic, but nothing true horror. But I feel like we have quite a few horror games. So this is another one. Again, if you are concerned about any of the content as you're voting and deciding, please go check it out further and look up and see if it's in your comfort level.
Yes.
And again, speaking of horror, our 12th title of 16 is Signalis, a classic survival horror experience set in a dystopian future where humanity has uncovered a dark secret. Unravel a cosmic mystery, escape terrifying creatures, and scavenge an off-world government facility as Elster, a technician replica searching for her lost dreams.
It's giving horror Ghost in Shell.
Ghost in the Shell
to me. It looks very, very cool. The movement almost reminds me of like old Flash games from back in the day, like stick figure Flash games in a way. But the animation and drawing in between is like so beautiful and crisp. So yeah, spooky, scary kind of game. Interesting to see how we go with this.
Yeah, this one. I think anyone, when they say classic survival horror, this is very much classic, like PS1 survival horror. PS1, so if you, I played this last year, I definitely feel like I did not understand everything that happened. It was a very cryptic, almost poetic game in the way that they sort of showed off some of the narrative. If you watch the trailer, there's a lot of like flashing of different text and like even other languages, I believe German. And there's a lot, I think, to dig into this, both philosophically as well as narratively. This is one that I think has multiple endings, depending on also what you do and sort of how you play.
Okay.
And I think if you enjoy, again, traditional classic survival horror, so you're going to be managing your inventory, you're going to be having limited resources. They do have different accessibility and difficulty modes that kind of ease it up if you're not familiar. But for those who do like that kind of challenge, that is there in this game.
So when I'm like freaking out and like shoot all of my bullets in like 0.5 seconds because I'm just there's a setting that I can turn on that will hopefully make my life a little easier.
Yes,
okay.
Although I think you definitely want to, like, even me, because that is my typical, like, what is it, prerogative in games. Quickly in this game, I learned, I'm like, in this game, it's better to sometimes run. It's better. Yeah. It's one of those games where you're like, you have to just be calm, and that was the hardest part for me. Like, just be chill, because you have to manage and conserve your resources. I will say this was a really, really thought-provoking game.
Ooh.
It has some fun puzzles. I think there was some backtracking that I personally was like, like the puzzles have forced you to walk around. Mm. And so I think, again, very classic survival horror. It's like very true to that original sort of genre and intention, which I think could be a pro or con depending on your style of play. I really liked it, though.
Nice. And it sounds like there's a lot to discuss within. So yes. That's exciting.
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting game.
So the next one on the list is Signalis.
Nope, we just said Signalis.
Nope, we just did Signalis. I'm reading lower now. There swings a skull. There swings a skull. Grim tidings. Enter the doomed town of Perieldas. Perieldas. Watch as the flames turn bone and stone to ash. Like joined wicks, we'll all burn together.
Again, just joyful, bright, happy. Certainly nothing wrong here.
Are y'all okay? Are we okay? Okay. So again, kind of as we're scanning through here, some of the things that strike me off the bat is the motion of the characters almost reminds me of like Bomberman from back in the day. I don't know if that strikes true to you at all.
Play a ton of Bomberman, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah, it's giving me like a little bit of that style, like pixelated movement energy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, do you know anything about this?
Yeah, well, so I have not played this myself, so everything I know from the Steam page. This is another one where it's not horror in the sense that maybe like Signalis that we just talked about was a very much like traditional classic survival horror. I think this one has a bit more of this like kind of slice of life horror, if that is sort of a thing. Basically, it says here, and I'll just read it so I don't get it wrong. The town of Perieldas, stands in the center of a vast desert. Its citizens live their lives quietly, or at least they once did. In recent days, the speaker gallows sprang weed-like in the heart of the town, and since its inception, the denizens of Perieldas have been sacrificed one by one. The electric words that spew from the gallows claim this is to staunch the blistering hatred of the vengeful sun, but the heat has grown more and more unbearable. So it's like, again, slice of life in the sense that this is like, I'm trying to remember the story. Okay, you may know this because you also taught English. Okay. The story of the village in which everyone like picked up rocks and they threw rocks at one person. That was
the lottery.
The lottery. Yeah. Thank you. Oh my gosh. It gives me the lottery vibes in terms of it seems like a game that approaches like what happens that are horrible within communities versus these fantastical sci-fi worlds of Signalis. I think this is still a fantasy world, obviously, but yeah. I think it has, when I was looking at it, has kind of that lottery horror versus like jump scare monsters horror. Like, we're the monsters. That's the horror.
Love that. It's what it reminds me of, and I won't spoil it for anyone who has not read it or watched it, but this is a central plot point in American Gods, the Neil Gaiman's story. There's a small town that the main character lives in for a while, and every year some like teenager goes missing, and there's a connection to like obviously gods and like how you support them and make sacrifices to them, and so it is really reminding me of that, like the small town. It's really interesting how like people's lives get all tangled up within each other.
Right.
So I love stuff like this. I'm very intrigued by this game.
Yeah, and I think again, horror game, but now it's more close to home in a lot of ways, which I think is always very interesting. And I think that's where, for me, horror gets more uncomfortable. It's less uncomfortable when you have horror that's in these like on a spaceship with a monster chasing after you. Because for me, that's very much like, hey, that's not something I'll ever really experience. Horror within a community, though, that feels way more intimate and like much more scary to me. But we can talk about that if we play this game or more horror games, because I think we'll probably have more discussions on like what makes this particularly striking and scary.
I'm so excited. This is a very cool premise. Again, like such great recommendations came from y'all. The next one is Night in the Woods. Night in the Woods is an adventure game focused on exploration, story, and character, featuring dozens of characters to meet and lots to do across a lush, vibrant world.
This is one that I think across my time playing games, this is the number one game I have been told I need to play. Just even outside of Geeks and Grounds, outside of even streaming, just as a person, I have had so many people tell me this is the game you need to play. This seems like a game you should have already played. Why haven't you played it? For folks who aren't familiar and need a bit more description, in this game you play a cat named May who comes home, and this is kind of about what happens when you come home after, you know, and you're on the cusp of and basically an adult and needing to figure out your life. Within that, there's a bit of a mystery in the town, which I can't speak to because I don't know what happens. But this is, I think, going to offer a lot of discussion in terms of what it means to come back to your community, to become an adult, especially in a time that I think this came out and refers to some of the time where like certain like cities were experiencing a bit of like the recession and things like that. I'm not 100% sure, but for some reason I feel like someone's told me that.
I mean, the cat is wearing a sweater, and the art style reminds me of like a children's book in the best way imaginable. And I saw anti-fascist messaging, so how have you not played this game?
It's one of those that I think part of it was everyone had hyped it so much, and I was like, okay, I don't want to go in and have these like super high expectations and have it not resonate. I would feel really bad. You know, I want to be able to give it a chance to let it stand on its own merit versus like listening to the hype. And then it just kind of kept getting pushed back when other games came out. So I think this would be a really cool one to play. Again, many of these games had multiple nominations. This one definitely had multiple nominations. And I think especially, well, I don't know, every year I feel like everything's burning. But I think in a town or a time when we, I think as a society, are continuously feeling the ripple effects of change and wondering about our place in the world, I think this could be a really interesting title to visit.
I love it.
Perhaps revisit for some of you.
Yeah, this looks very, very cool. I'm really drawn to this style game for sure.
Citizen Sleeper. Do you want to read this one?
Sure, yes. Citizen Sleeper. Role-playing in the ruins of interplanetary capitalism. Live the life of an escaped worker washed up on a lawless station at the edge of an interstellar society. Inspired by flexibility and freedom of TTRPGs, explore the station, choose your friends, escape your past, and change your future.
This, I feel like, is very much in your wheelhouse.
I was 3 words in. I was like, this is exactly the kind of thing I would love to play.
Yes. Citizen Sleeper is perhaps one of the strongest narrative games of last year.
Really?
I think it was my game of the year. I know it was in the top 1 or 2. I played it. I started it over like the holiday break in December, and I remember I just didn't sleep. Like I just played it until I was done. It has come out since with a couple of DLCs, and so I believe that are like embedded within the game now. And so being able to get the chance to replay it with the DLC would be incredible because I have not experienced it. I think this game ideologically aligns with a lot of what we talk about in terms of discussing capitalism, identity, labor, workers' rights, just how all of that coalesces when you have a company perhaps that holds most of the power within your community. So I think we definitely will have, if this is selected, some really good discussions about the game.
Lovely. Yeah, it looks very, very cool.
Yeah.
And I am drawn to everything that it's about.
Yeah, I think the artwork is really, really cool. The character portraits, I think, have so much style. I love the design. For folks, this is almost, in some ways, in terms of word count, like the opposite of Gree or Gris, where there is a lot of reading with this. So I think if you're someone who's like, oh, I either love a lot of reading, this is great, or maybe, oh, I don't want to read a ton, that's maybe something I want to not vote for. Take into account. This is a very narrative-heavy title. You're going to be doing a lot of reading, a lot of imagining. So as you read the text, it's not necessarily happening in front of you via a cutscene, for example, but you are going to be visualizing it as you read. So again, much more tabletop RPG style of gameplay, but it, I think, is well worth it. Like all of these games, I feel like a broken record, but this is another outstanding nomination.
We got some good ones. Our last game that made its way through this round of nominations, Tinykin. Catch hundreds of Tinykin and use their unique powers to bring Milo back to his home planet and back to normal size.
Another whimsical, fun,
my goodness,
fun game. If anyone is familiar with Pikmin, where you collect a bunch of tiny creatures, use them to help solve puzzles, this is very much in the similar vein. I think this is an outstanding title in the sense of it's just cute and happy and charming and hopeful and whimsical. And I love that it'll enable us to look at our world with fresh eyes. And I think there's something really nice about that, especially in a time where we are perhaps looking at the world with much more tired or angry or frustrated eyes.
Angry eyes.
Yeah.
Like in Toy Story.
Yeah. So that's Tinykin. Do you have any first impressions as you are looking at it?
Yeah, it's really interesting because like everything about this world is like 3D rendered except for the character and the little Tinykin people are like Nickelodeon style cartoons, like flat 2D cartoons moving around. It's a very cool juxtaposition. Yeah, I'm definitely vibing with this.
Yeah, this is one where I think has maybe, I don't know, I feel like all the art style is quite striking, but this definitely has, like, if you see a screenshot from this game, you know it's from Tinykin, and I think that's always really exciting to see. Again, many of the games on here have that stamp and mark of individuality, but this one in particular, I think, just has, again, this hopefulness to it and this joy that I think would be really appreciated in a game that we play together as a community.
Lovely. I am so excited to see how you all vote and what comes out on top.
Yeah, so just to close out, we just spent a lot of time talking about a lot of games to you and with you. And so, gosh, I'm moving around this window and it's really not cooperating with me. There we go. So again, if you are like, wait, I totally forgot what number 2 was, like what are the games nominated? Go to the link in the show notes. You will be able to look at all of the titles, if you scroll to the bottom, I think the way that the app is formulated and structured, you have to scroll to the bottom. You see all the nominees. You can click on the Steam page links. They're already there. And on that same page, you can vote. And so to vote, you just have to drag. You do it on mobile. You can drag it with your finger or use your mouse if you're on desktop. Put all of these games in the order that you would want to play them in. Using ranked choice voting, that means we will be taking into account your top pick, and you can read the website because it's a longer discussion, but through essentially the process of elimination, you are going to be voting for the titles you want, not voting against the titles you don't want to win. And I think that's a really important distinction. Just considering voting structures, especially in the U.S., and how I've been thinking a lot about how we are typically voting against what we don't want to win more than voting for what we want. And so we strive to change that up a little bit here on Geeks and Grounds.
It'd be great. Wouldn't it be nice?
One can hope. So we make the baby steps where we can.
Yes, and here's where we take the baby steps at Geeks and Grounds.
Yeah.
So get out there, vote bold, drink bold, live bold.
And before we sign off, I wanted to remind you all that we are not going to have a fresh episode next week. We're taking the week off because it is a holiday in the US. And we're gonna take that holiday and do a little bit of resting. So if you want, just listen to this episode again and remind yourself about the titles you can vote with. Okay. Sorry, yes. I interrupted and stopped your amazing...
No, I had this really incredible flow, and what we're going to say instead is take your time, pupate on this.
Oh, God.
And the menagerie of butterflies that we're going to get for next year is just going to be delicious.
Wonderful. All right, we will see you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.